All right, got your Bible this morning, turn to the book of Revelation, chapter 3. Revelation 3, that's the book of Revelation it's a strange read sometimes when you go in, you start digging into it, but I love it. There's a lot of things that are very applicable to what we live now in Revelation, and it is a book of prophecy somewhat, but it's also a book of guidance. I feel that Christ is able to, not only was he guiding the churches of Asia in there, but he was also giving John instruction on things that we need to look for, things that we need to be aware of in our own lives. Some of the things that the churches were going through all the way back then when John was writing these letters for Christ, we see churches going through it now, but we also see a lot of it take place in our personal lives. So Revelation 3 is where we'll be today. The title of the sermon is Cliffhanger. And, you know, I was thinking this morning about it, and I wrote a devotion about this last week for our sheriff's office newsletter, and it just kind of hung with me. I had originally, we were going to be in Lamentations today, but I couldn't get this off my heart, and I feel like God just had more to say about it than that little devotion I wrote. So, but nonetheless, I was thinking on how many times we felt like in our lives that we're just kind of hanging on to our sanity by our fingertips, you know, and it's like, you know, you probably all had that dream where you're hanging on to something, and then you're hanging on, finally you just let it, you know, you slip off of it or whatever, and you fall, and you wake up right before you hit the ground, one of those, you know. But I've had a lot of thoughts and dreams about just hanging on, you know, and it seems like in those moments, in that dream, you have no strength whatsoever. You know, some things that you hang on to that you could physically, if you were presented with that, you could hang on and you would be fine. But in that dream, for whatever reason, it don't work out like that. And so you can't, and then the next thing you know, you're falling. But just like life has become overwhelming and we feel like we're hanging on by a cliff, there's also times that we look at things and we think, you know what, I don't have much to offer the world. You know, I'm just, my offering to the world is not what I feel like it should be or what somebody else's should be. And then I look at it and I think, you know what, through all of this, I don't really have a good coping mechanism for it either. And if I'm being honest, I find myself fighting this battle more often than I like to admit. You know, every now and then I like to give y'all are like my therapist, and so I throw my therapy out there, or needs out there, but that's really not what it is today. I just hope that in what we discussed today, I hope that you're able to see maybe some of the ways that you deal with things in your own life, and maybe we realize that sometimes we try to do too much of it ourselves and not rely enough on God with it. And there's times that I feel like that everything I touch turns into a mess, and I can't seem to get anything right. And I know that's true if I'm trying to do anything with plumbing or anything with, you know, tools, as it's been pointed out around here. But I'm just saying in life in general, or the things that I do in life, I just feel like when I touch it, man, it's a mess, right? And there was a time in my life years ago that I didn't really care that much about the outcome of my failures. It just seemed like that was my path, that there were some failures there, right? And that was just part of it, and whatever, I didn't care. And now, though, I understand that my shortcomings and my failures are not my path. That's not the path that God intended for me. That's just a part of the path. That's things that happen along the path. And so what I've realized now is that I do care more about it, because those things have an effect on people other than just me. And so I do stress over it sometimes now. And one of the things that I and many others go through is that we fail to realize that God gives us all like our abilities and our gifts, right? And we know that those are different. I mean, that's covered throughout the Bible that our talents and gifts are different. But I'm just saying, regardless of whether they're different or not, every ability and talent and gift that we have comes from God. We know that every good and perfect gift comes from heaven, right? And when we have the ability to do something physically, we have our health and we have whatever it is, then we know at that point that we have a gift from God. It's a good and perfect gift from God. He's fully aware that some of us are going to perform our tasks better than others, if you will. But in Him, none of us are failures, and that's what we got to realize. When we feel like we are, we feel like that we touch stuff and it just goes to junk, that's kind of the way that we start believing on ourselves. But from that point, we have to stop and look and say, you know what, we're not failures. We may have failed in this, but we're not a failure because we are in God and God is in us, and therefore we're not going to be failures. The problem comes when we start comparing ourselves and our abilities to others, though. That's where we start running into problems. We open up the door at that time for the enemy to come in and just to jump on that with both feet, right? And then we look at those around us and we think that those that love us the most, or those that say that they love us the most, are where we feel like we get the least support, and that's just not the case. Again, that's the enemy jumping on that. So then that gives us an excuse to feel sorry for ourselves, or then that gives us an excuse not to try to perform in a way that honors God. That's just the things that we run into. But that's not how God intends for us to measure our worth or success. He intends for us to measure our worth and success on what it is that we can do to contribute to the kingdom of God. That's where we're measured in God's eyes. It's not that somebody here does something better than somebody else or whatever. That's just not the way it is. So Revelation 3, I keep putting an S on that. There's no S on that, by the way. It's Revelation. It's just whatever, when it rolls out my mouth, it sounds better with an S, okay? But it's Revelation 3. Verse 8 is where I'm going to start reading. I'm in the New Living Translation, NLT, this morning. So Revelation 3, verse 8. You found your place? Say, God is good? God is good. All the time. God is good. Amen. All right, Revelation 3, verse 8. I know all the things you do, and I have opened the door for you that no one can close. You have little strength, yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Look, I will force those who belong to Satan's synagogue, those liars who say they are Jews but are not, to come and bow down at your feet. They will acknowledge that you are the ones I love. Because you have obeyed my command to persevere, I will protect you from the great time of testing that will come upon the whole world to test those who belong to this world. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take away your crown. This is Jesus' message to the church of Philadelphia. All right, and there are 6 other letters in here that go out to churches, but this is to the church of Philadelphia. I want you to look what he told them in verse 8, right, where he says, you have little strength, yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. All right. He commended them because even though they were not spiritually strong, they obeyed him and they did not deny him. This is what we need to be reminded of when we start comparing ourselves to others. We look at some people and we're like, man, that is a spiritual warrior right there. That lady or that dude or whatever, man, they are in it, man. They are like right there beside God. They're like his right hand man. They're his his Abishai, what Abishai was to David, just this warrior that goes out and seems like they just, everything that they are involved in just flourishes and thrives. And so we look at that and we compare ourselves to that. But we don't need to do that. See, I struggled with it for the longest time when God called me here to pastor Centerpointe Church. I used to look around, man, and it seemed like nothing I did here seemed to be as good as what other pastors were doing at other churches. And I would worry myself sick about that, to the point that I would call other pastors and I'd be like, man, what are you doing? Like, because folks are like knocking your door down to get in there, right? And folks are knocking my door down to get out, you know? So I'm like, what are you doing? You know, and they'd be like, and I had one dude tell me, and I appreciate him so much. He said, listen, it's not what we're doing or what you're doing, right? You're getting that all wrong. He said, stop worrying about making your church this church, or your church that church, or your ministry this ministry. He said, don't do that, man. And, you know, when I came here, though, I was listening to so many things. I was told so many times about how Pastor Dave did this and how he did that, and how they were having all these big crowds and all that stuff, you know. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to try to do things the way this dude did it, right? I'm like planning trips to New York and stuff, you know, because that's, you know what I mean? I was like, man, I cannot live up to this. Well, the next thing I knew, I was trying to do everything I saw all these others doing instead of what God called me to do. And see, that's where we miss the boat, is we start comparing ourselves to others. This happens in day-to-day life. It happens in ministry. It happens at work. It happens whatever. My strengths and weaknesses are not the same as other pastors, and they're not meant to be. Neither are yours. Your strengths and weaknesses are not going to be the same as the person next to you. They're going to be different. Now, I still get frustrated from time to time, and I wonder what I'm doing wrong when I look out and the seats are empty. But then I come in and there's a day like this, and God's like, look, all right, I'm bringing them here. And that's what I have to understand. And that's one of the things that I was like, man, all right, we got to buy better coffee. Okay, and then we got to do this, and we got to do that. And then people will come in and all this. That ain't it, man. It's not. And we did that with this building, right? When we gave up our lease in the other building and we decided that we needed to move, we decided we were going to buy this building, we did it wrong, right? We had the field of dreams. I think I talked about this before. We said, man, if we build it, they will come. Well, that ain't the way to do it, right? What we got to understand is if God builds it, they will come, right? Well, we were trying to do God's work for him. We put it right on the corner, right? It was right on the corner and right on the price. That was what we were right here. We're ready. Bring it on in, right? And then we had some yard sales, and man, we killed it on them yard sales. And I'm going to tell you, yard sales location is everything, okay? And we can have some yard sales around this joint. But that still wasn't necessarily bringing it in. We were trying to really use that yard sale as a tool, not only to raise money for certain things that we wanted to do in the church, but also as a way to bring people in, right? So we had it kind of all wrong, and we were trying to do the things that we wanted to do rather than what God wanted to do. But God has reminded me many times that I can't control people's choices, right? And then he's also reminded me that he don't want me to control people's choices. But what we have to learn in our life, and especially in our faith journey, is that the devil is a liar. The Bible's clear about it. The devil is a liar. Because when you start feeling these things, you start comparing yourself to others, you're never going to be as good as that person you're comparing yourself to, because the enemy's going to creep in and show you your shortcomings and how that person's doing everything right. That's just what he does. He comes to what? To kill and to steal and to destroy. He wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy your self-confidence. He wants to destroy your image of yourself. That's what he comes to do. Satan will convince us that we have to be as good as at something else as this person is or that person is, and it's a lie. We don't. We absolutely don't. And that's one of the things I love about this passage, because Christ is pointing that out to the church of Philadelphia. All right, and we'll get into all that in a minute. But if we spend all our time worried about how we measure up to other people, we'll never truly see our purpose in God. And that's what we have to understand. You look around, you look at other people's marriages, and you're like, man, these Facebook marriages are great, right? These fools put it out there, man. Look, they put all their business out here. It's great, and it's great. No, they put that business out there they want you to see. And then you check it out, and you're thinking, gosh almighty, man. Like I'm failing as a husband, or I'm failing as a wife, or whatever. And he's reading it. But that's the enemy telling you, yeah, man, you're not measuring up to that. You're going to have to do something, right? But what the enemy's not allowing you to see is the fact that that's just a picture that somebody's painting. It's not really what's on the other side of the canvas, And so we got to realize that. I had to come to terms with the fact that God didn't call me as a pastor to be Stephen Furtick or to be T.D. Jakes, right? Or even to be Scott Price or Alan Jesse. Those guys are local guys, but they got great congregations and things are going great and all that stuff, right? Well, I think we got a great congregation. Just because it's not 400, 500, whatever, I still think that we got a great congregation. And that's just that many more things that, that come in and variations of people that create sometimes chaos and all that stuff. So, I mean, God's got a plan for each and every one of us in each and every place, right? But God called me to be Pastor Mike, right? And that's it. And to use what he gives me to do the best that I can at it. And that's it. And I finally came to grips with that, right? And I've said before, I used to stand at the door at the other church and just stand there right to the last minute, looking out the door. It was kind of like a puppy, was waiting on somebody to come home. And it's like, there's one more going to come. One more going to come. Because there's always somebody running late. And then I realized that there's usually nobody running later than me. So it's not. But I kind of got past all that, right? But just the same, he didn't call any of you to be someone else either. And to do things the way that somebody else does them. He didn't call us to be anything more than what we are. But we cannot get past that. We got to compare ourselves, man. And it starts at a young age, right? But and it grows, and it's about, kids are worried about what kind of, oh man, I got to have these kind of clothes because such and such got these kind of clothes, or I got to have these shoes because dude's got these shoes, and I want to have them because he's cool and I want to be like him, or I got to have, if you're an athlete, I got to have the game that such and such has got instead of having the game that I got, or whatever it is, I got to have this girl to be my girlfriend instead of because my buddy over here has got this girl, and vice versa. It's all comparison, man. I got to have this car. I got to have this job. I got to have this house. I got to have this bank account, because of what somebody else has. And the more that we stay in that comparison, the less likely we are ever going to see our purpose in God. There are plenty of us in our lives, though, that have mentors, right? And there's nothing wrong with having a mentor to kind of guide you along things, but a mentor is still not, you still are not going to do things the same way that person did, right? Eric Ramey has always been a mentor to me. I love him, right? But I'm not Eric, and I don't do things the way Eric does. As a matter of fact, Eric and I butt heads all the time. We're more like siblings than we are anything. But I don't do things the way he does. And I don't compare myself to him because we're just on two different planes with the way that we do things. We've been given people in our lives, though, that like Eric is and me, that we respect and we admire and maybe even imitate a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't try to be them. I mean, Paul even talked about imitating him in 1 Corinthians 11:1 when he said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Because he knew that everything he was doing in life, he was doing to imitate Christ. And we are supposed to try to be Christ-like in everything that we do. And so he was confident enough in his faith journey that he says, imitate me even as I imitate Christ. Now, that don't mean that he expected everybody to do everything as well as he did or exactly like him, because he knew as well that God had a purpose for everybody and that not everybody's purpose was the same. He was making the point that he tries to be Christ-like and he uses the gifts that God gave him to do so. In the same way, we should try to be Christ-like to others. Right? I mean, that's our thing, is to try to show Christ, let Christ be seen in us in the way that we treat others and the things that we do. that's not necessarily to say that the way that one person shows Christ to somebody is the same way that you show Christ to somebody. Some people, and I know that people, we talk about money and how we use money and things like that, but that's how some people show Christ to others, is through their money. And that's just, they, for whatever reason, they're able to financially contribute to ministries, to churches, and to whatever it is. They don't necessarily feel like they have another talent, but God has blessed them in a way that they're financially sound and financially strong enough that they can contribute and show Christ to others by giving what has been given to them. I mean, it's just different. But Paul was making the point that he tries to be Christ-like, and we should try to be Christ-like too. He didn't say that we have to do it just the way he did. So let's skip down to verse 11. Verse 11 is powerful. He says, I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take away your crown. That is some of the best encouragement that I have ever heard. I am coming soon. I mean, that's powerful in like so many ways. First of all, it's his promise that he's coming back for us just as he said he would. He was renewing that promise in that moment. You think about it, what is our faith is built on Jesus Christ, right? And our faith is built on the fact that he came and that he died for us, and then on the third day that he rose again, and then he ascended to heaven. But before he ascended to heaven, he said what? I'm coming back. I'm coming back. It wasn't like the Schwarzenegger, I'll be back type thing, but it was, I'm coming back. He tells us in John 14 that he's going to go away and prepare a place for us that where he is and we can be. He gives us that promise. Well, then now he's coming in Revelation, he's talking to the church of Philadelphia, and he says, I'm coming soon. Hold on to what you got. Well, what makes that significant, right? Not only that he's coming soon, but then he says, hold on to what you got. I mean, what more could we ask for when he says, I'm coming soon, than to know that he's coming back for us, right? The next line, though, is every bit as significant to someone like me. Because remember what he said in verse 8 when he mentioned the fact that they had little strength? He says, you have little strength that you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Now, that don't sound like they were accomplishing a whole lot. He said, you have little strength. They weren't a big, powerful church. You go and you look at some of the churches around, and they've got, tons of ministries going on, and they're supporting all these missionaries, and they're doing all this. That's a strong church, right? On the outside. But Christ said, you have little strength, yet you obeyed me and did not deny me. So this next line is significant, right? Because here he says, hold on to what you have, not what somebody else has. Hold on to what you have. You have little strength, but hold on to what you have. You haven't accomplished a great deal of things, but hold on to what you've done. All you need is me, and I'm coming soon, is essentially what he's saying. In other words, what you have is good enough. And what you have has earned you a crown. See, we don't have to be like that coworker. We don't have to be like that friend. We don't have to be like that church member that seems to have it all together. We don't have to be that. We can be us, and we can walk through this life trying to reflect Christ. And the way that we reflect Christ is going to be within our abilities. And when we do that, then we know that when we're just hanging on by a thread, because there's going to be times that we're cliff-hanging, and we're just hanging on by a thread, he's coming soon, and he's going to throw that lifeline. Just when you feel like that all your strength is about to give out and you're about to let go of what you're holding on to and plummet to absolute failure, he's coming soon. He's coming soon. Hold on to what you have. I'm coming soon. And he's going to throw you that lifeline. There's been so many times in life that I've been ready to throw in the towel. I mean, things happen. There's frustrations, whatever, and I don't understand some of them. And I'll look and I'm like, man, I have tried so hard to be better in this category, but I'm not. Like I turn around and I jack it up again. I've messed something up. I've made a mess of it again. And when I feel like that I'm slipping right off of the edge of everything and I have absolutely no hope, he shows me something like this. He says, I'm coming soon. Hold on to what you got. It's okay. So in those dreams where we're hanging on, and then we just aren't, we just let go, we have to know that it's okay to let go. Because as long as we're trying to hold it in our own strength, we're going to fail. We're going to slip. We're going to plummet sometimes. But you've heard the saying, let go and let God. So in that moment, you got to let go and trust that he's there with that lifeline. He's not going to let you fail. The enemy's going to tell you have. He's not going to tell you you are going to fail. He's going to tell you have failed. He's going to tell you that you failed. Look at what they're doing. They're doing great. They're in this place and all this, and they're climbing. They're going higher. You've already failed. You're at the bottom. That's a lie. It's a lie, and it comes straight out of hell. If you know you're trying to live for Jesus, don't let the enemy tell you that you're not good enough, because you are. And the way that you're doing it is good enough. The way that you're doing it is within the abilities and the gifts and the talents that he's given you. You may not be as strong as somebody else. That's okay. You may not be as prosperous as somebody else. That's okay. You may not be as smart as somebody else. That's okay. He said, you have little strength. Now pay attention. Yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Well, that's good enough for him, no matter what the enemy tries to tell you. I love the Lord. I'm going to obey this word the best I can. And I'm definitely not going to deny him, right? So he said, even though this is where you are, it's okay. I'm coming soon. Just hold on to what you got. Don't let anybody take that crown away from you. The one that's trying to strip that crown from you is the enemy that's lying to you, right? So just hold on to what you have for him and know that that crown's coming. Why do we care about the crowns? The crowns are not necessarily something that gives us status, but it's something that let us know, when we get there and we're rewarded with the crowns and we're rewarded with the jewels in our crowns, it's not because of anything great that we've done or anything like that. It's just because we've trusted him. Right? We've trusted him. We've tried our best to obey his word, and we haven't denied him. And we've earned a crown for that. So bow your head and close your eyes.